The CNBC app. Global market news in one place. Customizable sections and personalized alerts. Stocks tracking, interactive charts and market insights all in your hands. Stay connected. Stay informed. Download the CNBC app today.
Can it have been a year since we were here? Well, welcome to Squawk Box. We are once again live in Davos for the World Economic Forum. Karen Cho, of course, and myself, Steve Sedgwick. And these are your headlines. Well, the waiting is over. Donald Trump takes office in the White House with a wave of executive orders, sending ripples through global stock markets, but stops short of launching tariffs against his key trade rivals and, dare I say it, trade friends.
We will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
Well, one of the first things he did, the new president signs a 75-day stay for TikTok whilst withdrawing Washington from the Paris Climate Agreement for a second time.
The boss of UAE's sovereign wealth fund, giant Mubadala, tells CNBC exclusively that AI demand is profoundly high, strengthening its investment case, but warns the technology is not without its risks.
This is a technology that no one today really appreciates truly the level of disruption that's going to create, affecting everything.
Stay tuned as we hear from Europe's Mistral AI in a rare interview with the CEO Arthur Mensch at 10 GMT.
And I'm Sylvia Maro in London. The dollar slides and the Chinese yuan hits a 6-week high as markets take in the start of a new Trump era.
Well, it is genuinely fabulous to be here for the World Economic Forum at such a momentous and historic time. And I, for one, feel stunningly privileged that we are here because you have some of the top business men and women on the planet, some of the top leaders globally on the planet, some of the top academics here on the planet. And quite frankly, the World Economic Forum is asking us all kinds of questions today, lots and lots of things that we'll be doing over many panels over the next few days and many topics. But you have to get the elephant in the room at the top of all those topics, and it is what happens next in the United States. Arguably the most important economy in the world, with arguably the most important person in the world at the helm, and arguably the most volatile person at the helm as well. It is going to be a fascinating WEF and 4 years.
Well, the receptions all kicked off last night, didn't they? And top point of conversation was Trump, but of course inauguration was starting to play out while those receptions were taking place here. So in terms of digesting the detail and talking about the sector-specific outcomes, that's all coming today. Yeah,
Donald Trump has wasted no time signing a series of executive orders within hours of being sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. On the list, a full withdrawal from the World Health Organization, a withdrawal for a second time from the Paris Climate Accord. He's declared a national emergency at the border with Mexico, a repeal of the Biden-era EV targets, and a 75-day extension on the TikTok ban. He did, however, stop short of introducing tariffs on imports to the US, as previously promised. In his inaugural address, Mr. Trump pledged that these orders would amount to a complete restoration of America.
My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over.
I spent a lot of last night worrying about my panel this morning. I've got a huge growth panel, and whether I go straight in with Trump and break up the rundown or whether I stick to the order. And quite frankly, I have to go with the former because I'm a journalist. And with that in mind, I'm delighted to say our first guest on set this morning is Mario Greco, who is the CEO of Zurich Insurance, joining Karen and myself. Mario, we always learn something speaking to you as well. I make no apologies for going straight in. What do you make of the new presidential era?
I think so far everything has been expected. His speech has been strong, maybe stronger than ever before. His will is clear, and let's see next.
Yeah.
The world is in a transformation which is important and era setting. The digital transformation, AI, these are long-term trends that are not going to change whoever runs any country.
They may not change, but you are one of the most important insurance companies on the planet. You have large US exposure. We have just had the hottest year on record in 2024, and we have devastating events on the west coast of the United States, huge insurance event as well. Is it worrying for you that from a presidential level, we now have a withdrawal from the Paris Accord?
Look, I think we have to admit that the Paris Agreement has not delivered any of the plans, ambitions, targets that were expected. And it's also true that we are looking for other means to achieve the reduction in the temperature that is badly needed. I mean that technology needs to help. Mm-hmm. Without technology, we're not going to make this planet colder than it is today, or it's going to be soon. So no, I don't think this is the big event, but it will be interesting. I heard that it's going to go next to Los Angeles. It's interesting now to hear what he says and what he plans to do there, because that city needs reshaping, needs restructuring.
I'll pick up on the wildfires in a moment. To me, there was a big takeaway for Europe from last night, and that was about the competitiveness of the landscape thanks to regulation. Number one on climate change, as the regulations are being rolled back, and we saw that in EVs and for auto manufacturers, and we know in Europe they've been struggling. And, of course, when it comes to other climate targets and how banks, insurance companies are involved in that market. So are you concerned, after what you heard first glimpse, that in fact Europe is still in the slow lane with regulation now, even more so thanks to these Trump policies coming in?
But again, Karen, I think this is a long-term trend. Europe is always lagging behind, and it's always kind of busy with itself in a world which is going very fast forward with a lot of innovation. So it's a wake-up call again for Europe, and I hope that Europe takes it seriously and wakes up, because we need Europe to wake up now.
Let me ask you more about those wildfires, because it has been such a headline story across California, these winds that were fanned by the desert winds that have come through and swept through California. What was the sort of exposure you had, and how does it change the narrative from what we've heard from insurance companies about mitigating risk, which means not offering insurance products for what really is a very expensive part of the world?
I mean, unfortunately, this is not the first time it happens. This is not a new phenomenon. We had wildfires 2 years ago, we had wildfires 4 years ago, and we had wildfires in other regions of the world. So we were prepared for that, and now we're prepared to help for this devastation there, and we're already helping the customers. I think the problem is that with the way we configured some cities, Los Angeles is one, but it's not the only one, we are at high risk. And the insurance cannot resolve this because it is the configuration. So there must be preparation for that, there must be prevention, there must be mitigating acts. All these things were not there. And this, unfortunately, was something that was expected.
Mario, in terms of where you allocate capital next, you are one of the most important financial companies on the planet as well. Given everything we've discussed and all the things we haven't discussed this time round as well, the slow lane of Europe, the Trump inauguration and what he means for business in the United States, other big growing areas as well, where are you most likely next to allocate the capital for Zurich?
So we will continue to allocate capital into growth markets like Asia. Yeah. We've done a lot in the past years, so we'll continue with that. This is where the highest growth is. We're not afraid to also deploy more capital into US. Mm-hmm. And in terms of our business and activities, we want to continue growing in the commercial insurance space, and so we will continue to deploy capital there.
And sorry, with that in mind, von der Leyen has got to listen to what Letta had to say, has got to listen to what Draghi had to say, perhaps even listen to what Orcella is trying to do in Germany as well. It's the Italians, by the way, Mario, you might have noticed that. Is that how to get Europe back on track?
It's not only that. I mean, take all the developments in AI and digital. Europe has not invested in that as America has done, but even China did. It is also the integration of financial markets in Europe. It is still the way, how complicated it is to do business in Europe. So yes, it is that, but it's even more. And this is why, I'm saying it again, Europe needs to wake up. The world needs that. I mean, business needs that, but we can do it ourselves.
And Mario, we must let you go. It's a busy schedule, even though it's about, 10 past 6 in the morning. You've got places to be. So we do appreciate you kicking off the conversation with us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure, sir.
Mario Greco with us, the CEO of Zurich Insurance. We've got plenty coming up, but lots of conversations from the mountain today. We'll be hearing from the Randstad CEO. That is our first on CNBC conversation coming your way shortly. And, of course, you can catch up with the latest news on Davos on our CNBC Live blog. For more of our coverage from Davos, you can check out our social pages and you can catch the full show streaming on YouTube. Sylvia.
Let me run you through some of the market action thus far, Karen, starting with what we're seeing in the currency markets. The narrative here is very much related to potential tariffs from the United States on 3 key countries. We're having Mexico, Canada, but also let's not forget that when we heard from Donald Trump yesterday, he did not mention tariffs on China. So that is the context as we look at some of these currency moves today. We are seeing pressure for the Canadian dollar as well as the Mexican peso as a result of potential tariffs coming into place in early Feb. And I also want to show you how Asian markets are digesting some of the comments from Donald Trump, because these are the equity markets that had the chance to first react to some of these comments. We're looking at the Shanghai Composite. We are down 0.2%. However, Hang Seng, we are up almost 1%. Just a brief mention on the Nikkei 225, because this week we actually are potentially looking at a rate hike from the Bank of Japan. Let me also show you what's happening in terms of oil prices. This, though, very much Donald Trump keeping up with his message, drill, baby, drill. That, however, has not moved the needle for oil prices this morning. We're still tracking at similar levels. However, though, investors here are also taking into consideration some comments around potential tariffs as well. In terms of how we're likely to open in Europe in a couple of hours' time, let me show you what are the opening calls at this stage. They actually project that it could be a negative start to the trading day across the European continent. Let's see what will happen later in the day, but no doubt that investors will also be focused on those comments from Donald Trump. And if we also take a look at U.S. futures, this is how we're likely to open on Wall Street later today. They project a positive start to the trading day, Karen. This after U.S. markets were actually closed for Martin Luther King's Day.
Sylvia, thank you very much for running us through the market. So we do have a packed show ahead. We're going to be joined here in Davos by the CEOs of Randstad, EY and Novartis, as well as the heads of NEC, Lloyds Banking Group, ING and Allianz. All that coming up on Squawk Box. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our special coverage here in Davos. Now, the start of 2025 could herald a new return to office push, with companies like Amazon, Starbucks and JP Morgan all abandoning their hybrid work policies.
It's hard to be a barista at home, isn't it? Oh, no, they mean the office workers.
Or a TV anchor sometimes.
Indeed.
Now, the growing list of companies calling employees back to the office comes as a new report by Randstad reveals a new workplace dynamic, with employees increasingly favouring a greater work-life balance over better pay.
Well, thank goodness we've got the architect of that survey, Sander van der Noordend, joins us now, CEO of Randstad.
There's a lot of moving pieces, though, as employees think they may still have the upper hand. Employers think they've got it back, at least in the United States. And then we've had President Trump in his inauguration speech threatening to, again, keep on rebuilding the wall, very tough on the southern border. And, of course, we know that there could be tariffs that impacts the inflationary environment. What does that mean in terms of the employer balance in the labour force in the United States?
Well, I would say long-term trend here is talent is scarce. The unemployment is still very low. Talent is in demand. So this is not a power play between talent and employees. I think if you look at the average days of policies in the respondents here, it's 3.5 days in the office. The employees say 3 days in the office. So it's not that far apart, and I think it can be solved. The employers skew a little bit more towards the 5 days, the employees more towards the 3 days. So I think it's pretty close.
What about labour supply? Because you skirted around the Trump reaction there, and the reality is, if we're talking about fewer migrants coming across the southern border, migrants that have impacted the labour market supply dynamics as we know, does that mean we're talking about a much tighter US labour supply market in coming years?
I think, Karen, you will see some of that. But I don't think, as some people say, the world's going to fall apart and the work won't get done. There will be some tightness that might have a bit of inflationary pressure on wages, but I don't think it will be a massive deal.
But this isn't just about the other side of the Atlantic, Sander. This is about Europe as well. This is about Wilders and what his policies are in the Netherlands. This is about the AFD policies. And these people don't even need to either be the Prime Minister, the President, or actually in government. They need to be able to influence policy. And that's what's happening in Europe. So closer to home, are we seeing a tightening of migration rules that are actually going to affect the European workforce?
I think you're seeing that, but actually I would say some of that is good, because in some countries, and the Netherlands being one of them, there's a lot of work being done, low-skilled work that doesn't add a lot of value. And from the Draghi report, we all know we need more productivity, we need higher value. So
I get that, Sander, yeah. But I know young Dutch men and women and young English men and women, they don't want to do those jobs. So you say they don't add productivity, they don't add value. But who's going to do those jobs? Because I know a lot of, I'm going to say it, entitled millennials, entitled Gen Zers who don't want to get down and work hard to build up their career from the bottom.
I disagree on the Gen Z. They want to work hard. They want the work-life balance as well. You're absolutely
nice,
right.
Because I don't remember having a work-life balance when I was building my career.
You're right. But I think European economies in general need to think about what type of economy they want to be longer term. What does that mean for work, for skills? What does it mean in terms of what work needs to be done where? The roses, and Netherlands used to be famous for the roses. They're now coming from Africa. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be always the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about diversity and inclusion in the workplace, because Trump overnight in one of the speeches was talking about a merit-based system. So it feels as though the movement towards creating greater equality, gender gap closure, greater demographics in the workplace, that's all taking a pause for now, and we're going back into reverse. Do you think this is welcome?
No, not at all, and I don't think it's the case. Let me tell you what. As I said, talent is scarce. So the world, business needs everyone on board. Talent are looking, and that's what they overwhelmingly say in our survey, for a sense of community at work. And why do they say that? Because they are more productive, they can do a better job. So everybody on board, everybody in an environment where they feel comfortable is best for business. So what's happening here? Some businesses are pulling back some parts of their DE&I programs. Most businesses that I talk to are navigating and staying the course. Why? Because it's good for business. And one more thing. The workplace, also in the United States, is a very high trust environment. 85% of people in the United States trust their employer. Employers don't want to put that trust at risk.
I do wonder if that trust equation is going to change, and we haven't mentioned the phrase the intelligent age. This is a huge thing on the mountain. The intelligent age is about AI. Yeah. It is. But AI is coming, and the choice is whether you augment your workplace or whether you start to automate and step towards these AI solutions and reduce your workforce because of the high labour costs in recent years. What's coming as you talk about the future around AI?
It's both. If you look at the jobs that will sort of disappear, anything that has clerk in it or designer, executive assistants, that is sort of very much under pressure. Lots of new jobs in technology, in security, in AI, and also you're gonna like this one: truck drivers. Big
Great.
shortage of truck drivers. We need more of them.
Well, when CNBC
Healthcare,
finally
nurses.
gets rid of me, I know where to go.
Both of us. I think we
Not
could
the
both
best
do
driver.
this.
Let me come in with something else as well. I am sick of companies telling me that the workforce comes to them uneducated. The workforce comes to them without the right skills. Well, the best companies I know, maybe the best companies you know, and that's what I want to ask about as well, they actually take on the raw talent, they spot the raw talent, and they train them. They don't wait for the education system to do the job. They train them themselves. I can think of dozens of examples, whether it's apprenticeships or whatever, where they've taken someone they think is a really good person and they train them themselves. Are the best companies actually doing that?
They're doing that, and actually 60% of our employees that we've surveyed say they're getting the training they're looking for. And the other interesting point is they want to learn. They want to learn about technology, AI, technology, security, everything, and they want to learn about leadership, communication. How do I present?
Stupid question. And I've asked anyone in your business this a few times. I'll ask you, what's the point in a young, smart man or woman going into the workplace learning about AI? I mean that because surely the AI is going to know more about AI than the person who's pressing the buttons on the computer.
I'm not so sure about that, because ultimately you need to create value with the job you do. Leveraging AI and knowing how to do that, I think, is a very important thing. We do see, Steve, that skills such as, how resilient are you? How resourceful are you? Do you deliver the results? Do you communicate well? Those skills are definitely on the rise in terms of demand.
Now, I was struck by your report suggesting that AI could actually worsen labour supply shortages. That is extraordinary, because we're hearing about productivity and time savings thanks to AI. Why will it worsen the labour supply market?
Well, there will be new jobs. And there are plenty of jobs that still need to be done in healthcare, in technology, in hospitality, all kinds of jobs where AI doesn't really help. I mean, you were joking, you cannot be a barista from home. You cannot be a barista per computer.
No.
But people won't have the AI skills necessary. Is that the point, where people won't have the skill set? Therefore, employers would struggle to have people that can use the new technology that they've invested in?
Well, I think employers investing, and they are investing in AI training. Last year it was only 20% of people that got some AI training. This year it's 30%. So employers and employees are absolutely moving, and they're excited about it.
It's a brilliant survey and it's a brilliant conversation. Lovely to see you as ever. Sander van het Ostender, who is the CEO of Randstad.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
We've got plenty coming up. We're going to be talking to EY as well, what they're hearing here on the mountain. We've got that exclusive conversation coming up. That is ahead next. Sylvia, but a lot of wash up from the events of last night, the inauguration.
Absolutely. So let me give you an update in terms of energy announcements from the president-elect, and now president actually, Donald Trump. He has declared a national energy emergency to boost oil and gas production, seeking to speed up permits and roll back environmental regulations, while withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris climate deal. Speaking after his inauguration, Trump said he intends to, quote, drill, baby, drill.
I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
Jason Bordoff, the founding director of the Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University, told CNBC he's bullish on the outlook for oil prices.
There's like a little bit of bullishness right now. Both you're going to see efforts to deregulate, as Richard Edelman was just talking about, and some people might look at the ability to bring more supply on the market. But these Russia oil sanctions are actually quite serious, and President Biden did them, the Biden administration, with a gift out the door in a way that requires Congress to do a review to reverse. We know that the Trump administration is going to put maximum pressure on Iran. That could be up to 1 million barrels a day, although I think it's going to be harder this time than it was last time. We know Secretary of State, presumably Rubio, is going to want to take a hard line toward Venezuela. All of these things are bullish for oil prices, as well as looking at the macroeconomy and what tariffs might do. That could cut in the other direction.
And Ørsted has posted an impairment charge of 12.1 billion Danish krones, or around $1.7 billion, amid the delays and higher costs at its Sunrise Wind project in New York, as well as higher financing costs in the US. The Danish offshore wind developer said it remains committed to the US market in the long term. Let's get a check on how we're faring in terms of oil prices. Investors here digesting comments from Donald Trump of drill, baby, drill. However, though, that was very much already priced in, and so far we're not seeing huge swings in terms of oil prices. Nonetheless, an important market to keep monitoring.
Thank you for listening to Squawk Box Europe Express.
For more market-moving news, you can head to CNBC.com.
Or join us again on the show with Steve Sedgwick, Karen Cho, and myself, Arabile Kumete, weekdays on CNBC.